I never planned on becoming a mortician. Growing up in Millfield, I wanted to be a chef. My mom always said I had magic hands in the kitchen, but life has its own plans. When I was 19, both my parents died in a car crash. The funeral home director, Mr. Finch, showed me such kindness during that awful time. Something about his calm presence made an impression on me. With no money for culinary school and a newfound appreciation for the peace that proper death care could bring to families, I started working as Mr. Finch's assistant. The work suited me. I was good with my hands, didn't mind the quiet, and found purpose in helping people say goodbye. 10 years later, I received a letter. The government needed morticians with security clearance for military bases. The pay was triple what I made at Finch's, plus housing on base. With Mr. Finch's health declining, the timing seemed right. So here I am, Silas Thorne, 3 months into my position as the mortician for Fort Hadley Military Research Base. The work itself isn't that different from civilian mortuary science. But there's something about this place that feels off. It started with the paperwork. Most places have standard forms for death certificates. Fort Hadley has a 70-page manual titled Procedural Guidelines for Postmortem Management, and buried in those pages are rules. Strange rules that I'm told I must follow without exception. When I asked my supervisor, Major Voss, about these rules, she just smiled thinly and said, "Every base has its quirks, Thorne. Follow the guidelines and you'll be fine." But I'm not so sure, because I've already seen things that don't make sense. And the more bodies that come through my morgue, the more convinced I become that something is very wrong at Fort Hadley. The manual sits on my desk, its navy blue cover unmarked, except for the title and a series of numbers. I've read it cover to cover twice now, but I find myself returning to page 42, where the special rules begin. Rule 1. All cadavers must be processed within 6 hours of arrival at the morgue facility. This rule seems reasonable enough. Prompt processing prevents decomposition, but the military's standard 24-hour window exists for a reason. Sometimes investigations need more time. Sometimes families need to be notified before procedures begin. But at Fort Hadley, 6 hours is absolute. I've had officers physically remove my tools from my hands at the 5-hour, 59-minute mark. Rule 2. No autopsies may be performed between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., regardless of processing deadlines. This one makes less sense. The manual offers no explanation, and when I asked Major Voss about it, she simply said, "Just don't," in a tone that discouraged further questions. Rule 3. All personal effects found on cadavers must be photographed in place, then sealed in red containers, and delivered personally to Dr. Thaddeus Wexler in Building 17. The personal effects rule bothers me the most. Normally, personal items go to family or next of kin. Occasionally, they're held as evidence. But I've never heard of them going to a specific doctor in a separate building. Rule 4. If a cadaver's eyes are open upon arrival, do not close them. Mark the intake form with a blue dot and notify Major Voss immediately. The thought of leaving someone's eyes open throughout the entire process feels wrong and disrespectful. Rule 5. Never, under any circumstances, speak the deceased's name aloud while in the presence of the body. This final rule sent a chill through me. In my training, we were taught to speak to the deceased respectfully, using their name. It acknowledges their humanity. The prohibition feels almost superstitious. "Thorne, you've got an intake." I look up to see Private Novak, a lanky kid who can't be older than 20, standing in the doorway. His face is pale. "Transport team just arrived. They said to tell you it's urgent." I stand, pulling on fresh gloves and my lab coat. "Time of arrival?" I ask, calculating the 6-hour window in my head. 9:47 a.m., Novak replies. I follow him to the receiving bay. The transport team has already transferred the body bag to my table and is eager to leave. "Sign here," one says, thrusting a tablet at me. I scan the form, Cause of death is listed as training accident. Any details I should know? The soldiers exchange glances. That's all we were told, the taller one says. Dr. Wexler said you'd know what to do. There's that name again. Dr. Wexler from Building 17, who collects personal effects in red containers. I've never met him, never seen him, but his name keeps coming up. Once they leave, I turn to Novak. You can go too. Major Voss said I should stay and assist today. That's unusual. I typically work alone, but I don't argue. I unzip the body bag and immediately notice two things. First, the deceased is a woman in her early 30s, with lieutenant's bars on her uniform. Second, her eyes are wide open, staring at the ceiling. Rule 4. I feel a knot form in my stomach. Novak, hand me an intake form. I place a blue dot in the corner of the form with a marker. Go call Major Voss. Tell her we have a blue dot case. Novak practically runs from the room, leaving me alone with the lieutenant and her unblinking eyes. I continue with external examination. Female, approximately 32 years old, 5 feet 7 inches, 140 pounds. No visible wounds or trauma, which is odd for a training accident. I check her pockets for personal effects. In her breast pocket, I find a small black notebook filled with what looks like random letters and numbers. As I'm photographing it, I notice something odd. The lieutenant's dog tags are missing. Every service member wears them, especially during training exercises. I hear the door open behind me and turn. A man in a white lab coat enters. He's tall and thin, with gray hair cut military short and small round glasses. Dr. Wexler, he says by way of introduction. I understand you have a blue dot case, Mr. Thorne. Yes, I reply. I was just about to. You were about to step back and let me handle this, he interrupts. Blue dot cases fall under my jurisdiction. The manual doesn't say that, I point out. It just says to notify Major Voss. Dr. Wexler's expression doesn't change, but the temperature in the room seems to drop. There are aspects of protocol that are not in your manual, Mr. Thorne. As if summoned, the door opens again, and Major Voss strides in. She's a compact woman with steel gray hair and a perpetually stern expression. Dr. Wexler, she nods. I see you've met our mortician. Indeed, he replies. We were discussing jurisdictional matters regarding blue dot cases. Major Voss turns to me. You're relieved, Thorne. Dr. Wexler will take it from here. I want to argue, but something in her expression tells me it would be unwise. I strip off my gloves and head for the door. As I'm leaving, I hear Dr. Wexler say quietly, This is the third one this month. The frequency is increasing. I pause, straining to hear more, but Major Voss notices me lingering. That will be all, Thorne, she says sharply. Back in my office, I try to focus on the paperwork, but my mind keeps returning to what I saw. The lieutenant had no visible injuries, nothing to explain a training accident. And what did Dr. Wexler mean about the third one this month? That night, I dream of the lieutenant. In my dream, she sits up on the table, her eyes still open, and says in a voice like dry leaves, They took my name. I wake in a cold sweat at 2 a.m. Outside my window, I see lights moving in the woods that border the north side of the base. Flashlights, moving in a coordinated pattern. I watch until they disappear from view. The next morning, I arrive at my office to find Major Voss waiting for me. We need to talk, Thorne, she says, closing the door. About yesterday. What about it? Dr. Wexler tells me you were asking questions about the lieutenant. I keep my expression neutral. Just trying to complete the paperwork accurately. There were no visible injuries consistent with a training accident. Major Voss studies me for a long moment. Your job here is not to question or investigate. It's to process the deceased according to protocol. I understand that. I say carefully. But certain aspects of the protocol are unusual. They're necessary, she replies. This base deals with sensitive research. The protocols exist for good reasons. Like what? I press. Why can't we close their eyes if they're open? Why can't we speak their names? Major Voss sighs. There are things happening at Fort Hadley that you don't need to understand to do your job. But since you seem determined to ask questions, let me give you some context. This base researches experimental technology. Sometimes that research has unexpected side effects. Side effects that kill people? I ask incredulously. Sometimes, she admits. And sometimes the effects continue after clinical death. A chill runs down my spine. What does that mean? It means, Major Voss says, leaning forward, that the rules exist to protect you, Thorne. Follow them to the letter, don't ask questions, and you'll be fine. Before I can respond, my phone rings. Major Voss stands and leaves. It's the transport team. Another body is on its way. This one is a male, mid-40s, with captain's insignia. Unlike the lieutenant, his eyes are closed, and the cause of death is listed as cardiac arrest. There are burn marks on his fingertips and a strange bluish tint to his lips. I find nothing in his pockets except a keycard with the Building 17 logo. As I examine the body, I notice something odd about his right arm. There's a small incision in the crook of his elbow, professionally made and partially healed. When I turn the captain over to check his back, I notice a similar mark at the base of his skull. A small, neat incision that's been stitched closed with almost invisible sutures. 3 days later, Private Novak appears at my door again. Major Voss wants to see you, he says, in Building 17. This is new. I've never been invited into Building 17 before. I follow him across the base to the secluded building. Up close, it looks older than the other facilities, with a solid bunker-like construction. The receptionist checks my ID, then directs us to take the elevator to the 3rd floor. The elevator requires a keycard, which Novak provides. As we descend, not ascend, I notice with surprise, he keeps his eyes fixed on the floor indicator. The elevator opens into a long corridor with doors on either side. Unlike the institutional white of the rest of the base, these walls are painted a dull green. The lighting is dimmer here too, giving the whole floor a submerged feeling. Novak leads me to a door marked Conference Room B and knocks softly. Inside, I find Major Voss, Dr. Wexler, and a general I've never seen before. Mr. Thorne, Major Voss says, this is General Blackwood, the commander of Fort Hadley. I straighten instinctively. Sir. General Blackwood nods but doesn't speak. Major Voss gestures to an empty chair across from them. Mr. Thorne, Dr. Wexler begins. Your work here has been satisfactory. You follow instructions well, you're thorough, and your documentation is excellent. It sounds like a performance review, but the atmosphere is too tense for that. However, he continues, Major Voss informs me that you've been asking questions about our protocols, about the rules. I've been trying to understand them better, I say carefully. A commendable attitude. General Blackwood speaks for the first time, his voice deep and gravelly. But some matters at Fort Hadley are classified well above your clearance level. With respect, sir, I counter, it's difficult to properly follow rules when I don't understand their purpose. The three exchange glances, and Major Voss nods slightly. Very well, Dr. Wexler says. Perhaps a limited explanation would be beneficial. What would you like to know first? Rule 4, I say immediately. Why can't we close their eyes if they're open when they arrive? Dr. Wexler removes his glasses and polishes them with a handkerchief. Because the open eyes indicate that the subject was conscious during the transition. Transition, I repeat. From life to death, he clarifies. Or rather, from one state of being to another. Those with open eyes sometimes retain awareness longer than they should. I think of the lieutenant's unblinking stare and suppress a shudder. And Rule 5. Why can't we speak their names? Names have power, Mr. Thorne, General Blackwood interjects, particularly to those in a liminal state. Speaking a name can anchor certain aspects of consciousness that should be allowed to dissipate naturally. What about Rule 2? Why no autopsies between 2 and 4 a.m.? That's when the barrier is thinnest, Major Voss says quietly. The barrier? I ask. Dr. Wexler sighs. Between states of being. Between dimensions, if you will. Fort Hadley was built on this location for a specific reason. The fabric of reality is unusually permeable here. I stare at him. You're talking about supernatural phenomena. I'm talking about quantum states and dimensional overlaps, Dr. Wexler corrects. Phenomena that appear supernatural only because science hasn't fully explained them yet. What does this have to do with my job? With the bodies? General Blackwood leans forward. Fort Hadley's primary mission is to study and potentially harness these dimensional anomalies for national security purposes. The deceased you process are mostly researchers and security personnel who encountered unexpected phenomena during the course of their duties. You mean they died in experiments, I translate. They died serving their country, the general says firmly, and the protocols you follow ensure that their deaths are final and complete. The implication hangs in the air between us. What happens if I break the rules? I ask finally. Let's just say, Dr. Wexler replies carefully, that the results would be unfortunate for everyone involved. Including you, Major Voss adds. So what happens now? I ask. Now, General Blackwood says, you have a choice. Continue your work here with this new understanding and a slight increase in your security clearance, or request a transfer to another facility. I'll stay, I say after a moment. But I want access to the records of the deceased I've processed. If I'm responsible for making sure their deaths are final and complete, I should know what killed them in the first place. General Blackwood nods. Major Voss will arrange limited access to the relevant files. As Major Voss leads me back to the elevator, I have one more question. The lieutenant with the open eyes, I say quietly. What was her name? Major Voss glances around to make sure we're alone. Lieutenant Kira Frost, she whispers, but never say it in the morgue. Never. The next week, I access classified files on the deceased I've processed. I learn that Fort Hadley's research involves what they call trans-dimensional interface technology. They're trying to reach through to another dimension, and sometimes something reaches back. Lieutenant Frost's file is the most disturbing. According to the report, she was part of a team testing a new interface device when something went wrong. The device activated prematurely, creating what the report calls a bilateral breach. Whatever came through disappeared immediately, but not before it made contact with the lieutenant. She died 12 hours later. No cause of death is listed. Just a notation. Complete consciousness transfer. Subject no longer viable. I'm still processing this information when my phone buzzes with a text from Major Voss. Report to Building 17, Lab 12. Bring basic kit. The receptionist directs me to the 4th floor, another level below the one I visited before. Lab 12 is at the far end of a green corridor. Through the window, I can see Major Voss and Dr. Wexler standing over what appears to be an examination table. The room is divided into 2 sections. The front half contains standard lab equipment. The back half is separated by a glass partition and contains a single steel table with a body on it. The body is covered by a sheet, but I can see restraint straps hanging loose at the sides. Why would a dead body need restraints? This is a special case, Major Voss explains. One that requires your expertise but cannot be moved to the regular facility. Dr. Wexler gestures to the glass partition. The subject experienced a complete consciousness transfer approximately 4 hours ago. We need your assistance to prepare the body for study before the 6-hour window expires. He pulls back the sheet, and I have to stop myself from taking a step backward. It's Private Novak. His eyes are wide open, staring sightlessly at the ceiling. Unlike Lieutenant Frost, his body shows clear signs of distress. His face is frozen in an expression of terror, his fingers curled into claws. Worse, there's a large, perfectly circular wound in the center of his chest. A neat, cauterized hole about 3 inches in diameter that goes completely through his body. What happened to him? I ask. He was assigned to security for one of our experiments, Major Voss says. There was an incident. I begin my examination. The wound edges are smooth, as if the tissue was simply erased. No burn marks, no tearing. Just a perfect circle of absence where heart and lung tissue should be. As I'm finishing, I notice something odd. A small round device is attached to the back of Novak's neck, partially hidden by his collar. It's metallic, about the size of a quarter, with tiny lights around its edge. All but one of the lights are dark. What is this? I ask, pointing without touching it. Dr. Wexler leans in to examine the device. This isn't one of ours, he says, frowning. Major, was the subject wearing a tracker during the experiment? Major Voss shakes her head. Standard protocol is no metal objects of any kind in the chamber. Before I can stop him, Dr. Wexler pries the device loose. It comes away with a soft clicking sound, trailing thin, wire-like filaments embedded in Novak's flesh. The moment it detaches, the last light on the device flares bright blue, then goes dark. Simultaneously, all the monitors in the lab begin to beep erratically. The overhead lights flicker. What's happening? Major Voss demands. Dr. Wexler drops the device onto a tray. Some kind of power surge, he begins, but stops abruptly, staring at the body. I turn to look and feel my blood freeze. Novak's right hand is twitching. That's not possible, I whisper. He's been dead for 4 hours. The twitching spreads to his arm, then his shoulder. His head turns slowly, until those open eyes are looking directly at us. Emergency protocol, Major Voss says, her voice tight. Now. Dr. Wexler moves quickly to a red cabinet and removes what looks like a modified defibrillator with a single, pronged attachment. Meanwhile, Novak's body continues to move. His back arches, his limbs jerk. His mouth opens, but no sound comes out. Hold him down, Dr. Wexler instructs me. I move to hold his shoulders, trying to ignore the way his eyes track my movements. His skin is ice cold under my gloves. Dr. Wexler positions the device at the base of Novak's skull. He presses a button, and there's a high-pitched whine followed by a flash of blue light. Novak's body goes rigid, then limp. The monitors stop beeping. The lights stabilize. What was that? I finally ask. Neural disruptor, he replies matter-of-factly. Standard equipment for these cases. These cases, I repeat. You mean this has happened before? Rarely, Major Voss says. But yes. Sometimes the transition isn't clean. Sometimes there are echoes. Echoes, I say. Of what? Novak's consciousness? Or whatever took it? Both, Dr. Wexler admits. The interface creates a connection. Sometimes that connection persists even after the primary consciousness transfer is complete. I look down at Novak's body. You said his consciousness traveled? Where? To the dimension you're studying? No, Mr. Thorne, Dr. Wexler says quietly. To another host. I stare at him. You're not just studying these dimensional anomalies. You're using them to transfer human consciousness from one body to another. That night, I have trouble sleeping. I keep thinking about what I've learned. They're not just experimenting. They're trying to transfer human consciousness using dimensional portals. For what purpose? Military advantage? Immortality? Around 2 a.m., I give up on sleep and decide to walk around the base. The night air is cool, the sky clear. Most buildings are dark. As I near the edge of the residential area, I spot a figure ahead of me, walking purposefully toward the woods. Something about their gait seems familiar. I follow at a distance. The figure reaches the tree line and stops, looking back toward the base. In the moonlight, I recognize Major Voss. She turns and continues into the woods, following a narrow path. I follow. After about 10 minutes, the path opens into a small clearing. Major Voss stops in the center and waits. I hide behind a large tree, watching. Minutes pass. Then the air in the clearing seems to ripple. A soft blue light emanates from nowhere, illuminating Major Voss's face from below. She speaks, but I'm too far away to hear the words. The blue light pulses in response. It expands, forming a vertical oval about 7 feet tall. Within the oval, I can see something. Not quite shapes, but disturbances in the light. Major Voss reaches into her pocket and removes a small object, a device similar to the one we found on Novak. She holds it up to the light, which pulses more intensely. Then, from within the oval, a tendril of blue energy extends outward. It touches the device in Major Voss's hand, enveloping it. More tendrils emerge, wrapping around her arm, her shoulder, her neck. I should run. I should call for help. But I'm frozen in place, watching as the tendrils envelop Major Voss completely. Her body lifts slightly off the ground, suspended in the blue energy. Suddenly, her head snaps toward me, eyes wide and glowing with the same blue light. She sees me. "Thorn," she says, her voice overlaid with a strange harmonic. "You shouldn't be here." I back away slowly. "What are you doing, Major?" "What needs to be done," she replies. "What they've been trying to do in their labs, but cleanly, properly." "You're working with it," I realize. "Whatever came through." She smiles, but it's not her smile. It's too wide, too many teeth. Not working with, becoming, as Lieutenant Frost became, as Private Novak refused to become. Understanding dawns. The consciousness transfers. They're not going to other human hosts. They're going to whatever is on the other side of that portal. And they're coming back, she confirms. In us. With us. The perfect symbiosis. The tendrils surrounding her pulse, and her body contorts unnaturally. I turn and run, crashing through the underbrush. Behind me, I hear strange, multi-toned laughter. "Run all you want, Thorn. We already have what we need. Your base, your weapons, your world." I don't stop running until I reach the base perimeter. The guard at the checkpoint looks at me strangely as I pass, but doesn't stop me. Back in my quarters, I lock the door and try to think. Major Voss, or whatever is now wearing her form, is working against the containment protocols. She's helping these entities take over human bodies, and given her position, she has access to almost every area of the base. I need to warn someone. But who can I trust? The rules. I come back to the rules in my manual. They must exist for a reason. Rule 1. Process all bodies within 6 hours, to prevent enough time for the entities to establish a connection with the corpse. Rule 2. No autopsies between 2 and 4 a.m., when the barrier is thinnest. Rule 3. Personal effects to Dr. Wexler, to check for unauthorized devices like the one on Novak. Rule 4. Don't close open eyes, report with a blue dot, to identify those who were conscious during the transition, those who might have been taken over. Rule 5. Never speak the deceased's name in presence of the body, because names have power, can anchor consciousness, or call it back. At dawn, I head to Building 17 to find Dr. Wexler. As I wait for the elevator, I notice something odd. The security guards are wearing different insignia than yesterday. A small blue pin on their collars. The elevator arrives, and I step in. As the doors close, one of the guards touches his pin and speaks quietly into it. When the doors open, I'm met by Dr. Wexler himself, looking harried and tense. "I need to speak with you," I say, privately. "It's about Major Voss." He leads me to his office and activates what looks like a signal jammer on his desk. I tell him everything I saw in the woods. The portal, the tendrils, the device. Major Voss's transformation and her words to me. As I speak, his face grows increasingly grave. "I was afraid of this," he says when I finish. "We suspected there was an insider facilitating the unsupervised transitions, but had no proof." Dr. Wexler opens a drawer and removes a small device, similar to the neural disruptor I saw him use on Novak. First, we confirm who's still human. He places it against his own neck. A green light appears on its surface. "Your turn," he says, offering it to me. I place it against my neck. The light turns green. I hand it back with relief. "Now we find General Blackwood," Dr. Wexler says. "If he's still himself, we initiate containment protocol Omega. If not." He doesn't finish the sentence. We take the elevator back up, pretending nothing is amiss as we pass the guards with their blue pins. I notice now that the pins pulse faintly. Outside, the base appears unchanged, but I see the blue pins on more personnel, security guards, administrative staff, even medical personnel. We're halfway to the administration building when an alarm begins to blare. A voice over the PA system announces, "Containment breach in Sector 7. All personnel implement Protocol Epsilon. This is not a drill." Dr. Wexler curses under his breath. They know we're on to them. Sector 7 is the main armory. We reach a checkpoint where two guards, one with a pin, one without, are arguing. Dr. Wexler smoothly steps in, flashing his credentials. The guard without a pin nods and lets us pass. The one with the pin reaches for his weapon, but Dr. Wexler is faster. He presses the neural disruptor against the man's neck. The guard collapses. Major Voss stands 20 feet away, pistol raised. "That was unnecessary, Wexler," she says in that strange harmonic voice. "We offered you partnership." More personnel appear behind her, all wearing blue pins, all armed. "This isn't a partnership," Dr. Wexler says. "It's an invasion." Major Voss tilts her head at an unnatural angle. "Semantics. The outcome is the same. Your world has resources we need, bodies we can use." Dr. Wexler activates something on his wrist device. A different alarm begins to sound. "Protocol Omega," he says. "Emergency-based sterilization in 15 minutes. Nothing survives." Major Voss raises her gun again. "Then die you shall." She fires. Dr. Wexler shoves me aside, taking the bullet meant for me. I catch him as he falls. The compromised personnel advance. I drag Dr. Wexler behind a concrete barrier, fumbling for his neural disruptor. He presses it into my hand with bloody fingers. "The morgue," he gasps. "Protocol in my desk. Top drawer. Code 174238. "What protocol?" "Last. Defense," he manages. "If Omega fails, the lieutenant's name, use it." And then he's gone, eyes open and staring at nothing. I close them automatically, breaking Rule 4 without thinking. General Blackwood's voice booms over the PA system. "All personnel with Level 3 clearance or higher report to Building 1 immediately. Authorization code Black Sunset." The firing stops. Major Voss sends most of her people toward the administration building. I wait until they're gone, then make a run for the morgue. The morgue is eerily quiet when I arrive. I go straight to Dr. Wexler's desk. The top drawer is locked, but the neural disruptor overrides electronic locks. Inside, I find a single folder labeled Contingency Omega-2. The document describes a failsafe built into the Dimensional Research Program, a way to collapse the connection permanently if the entities ever broke containment. The key is in the morgue protocols. The names. Rule 5 exists because names are anchors, but also because they're keys. Speaking a deceased's name in the presence of their body creates a temporary interface, a momentary connection to wherever their consciousness went. And if that consciousness is now part of the invading entity, I need a body. Specifically, I need the body of someone I know was taken over. I check the storage log, and there she is. Lieutenant Frost, preserved for extended study. I pull open the drawer, and sure enough, Lieutenant Frost lies there, eyes still open, staring at the ceiling. The PA system crackles. Major Voss's voice, now almost completely overlaid with alien harmonics. Protocol Omega override accepted. Sterilization canceled. All personnel return to regular duties. They've taken control of the base systems. The failsafe is gone. This is my last chance. I take a deep breath and lean close to the lieutenant's ear. Kira Frost, I whisper. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the air in the room shifts, seems to fold in on itself. A faint blue light emanates from the lieutenant's open eyes. You broke the rule, says a voice behind me. I turn to find Major Voss standing in the doorway, pistol aimed at my head. But she's different now. Her movements are jerky, her skin too tight on her face, her eyes glowing faintly blue. The rule exists to protect you, she continues. Names open doors. Doors swing both ways. That's what I'm counting on, I reply. The blue light from Lieutenant Frost's eyes intensifies, spreading outward like fog. Major Voss takes a step back, her expression shifting to something like fear. What have you done? She demands. I don't need to control it, I say. I just need to give it a path back. The light forms a column between Lieutenant Frost's body and the ceiling, then begins to expand outward. Major Voss fires her gun, but the bullet seems to slow and stop in the blue light. You'll doom your entire species, she snarls, but her voice is changing, becoming more human again as something withdraws from her. The light encompasses her, and she screams. A sound that starts as that alien harmonic, but shifts to a human cry of pain. She falls to her knees, clawing at her ears, her eyes, her throat. All across the base, I can hear similar screams. The blue light is spreading, seeking out every compromised host, every blue pin, every interface device. I back away from Lieutenant Frost's body as the light intensifies. The temperature in the room drops. Frost forms on the walls, the floor, the storage units. Major Voss lies motionless now, her eyes open but empty, the blue pin on her collar dark and cracked. The light begins to pulse, contracting and expanding like a heartbeat. Then, with a sound like rushing wind, it collapses back into Lieutenant Frost's body. Her back arches, her mouth opens in a silent scream, and her eyes finally close. The room is suddenly, deafeningly silent. Outside, the base-wide screaming has stopped too. Major Voss is dead, truly dead this time. My phone rings. It's General Blackwood. Thorne, he says when I answer. Are you responsible for what just happened? Yes, sir, I reply. I think so. A long pause. Report to Building 1 immediately. And Thorne, well done. As I leave, I hear a soft voice behind me. Not quite sound, more like a thought inserted directly into my mind. Thank you, it whispers. They took my name. You gave it back. I don't turn around. Some things are better left unseen. 6 months later, Fort Hadley is officially decommissioned. The official story involves a chemical leak. The real story is buried under layers of classification. 43 personnel died that day. General Blackwood survived. He'd been using a prototype neural shield that Dr. Wexler developed. He's the one who helped me piece together what happened. As for me, I've returned to civilian life. Mr. Finch left the funeral home to me in his will. I've taken over the business, finding comfort in the familiar routines. Sometimes at night, I still dream of Lieutenant Frost and her open eyes, of Private Novak with the hole in his chest, of Major Voss speaking with that terrible harmonic voice. But mostly, I think about the rules. about how they existed for a reason, how breaking them had consequences beyond our understanding. I've created my own rules now for my funeral home. Simple things: respect for the dead, dignity in all procedures, no work between 2 and 4 a.m., and the most important rule of all: always, always close their eyes.